Okay, can President Trump go up to the Supreme Court to defend what he needs to get done through DOGE? Because it's being attacked by a bunch of Democrat judges, which is going to push it through the court system, I believe, all the way up to the Supreme Court. I'm Doug Tenaple in exile. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Watch Mike Davis, who's one of my favorite legal guys. He used to clerk for Judge Gorsuch.
Yeah, I would say this, that acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove gave both Daniel and Hagan an important civics lesson, because they need to understand that federal prosecutors in America work for the Deputy Attorney General, who works for the Attorney General, who works for the duly elected President of the United States. And when the presidents and the Attorney General make the policy decision that they want to drop a prosecution against the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, it shouldn't matter what their reasons are. Their job is to follow lawful orders as federal prosecutors and implement those policy decisions. Otherwise, they are obstructing justice. And remember, Eric Adams was targeted by the Biden Justice Department because he raised concerns about illegal immigration in New York City.
Yeah. We covered all this on the channel, but just so you guys can kind of see what's happening is you have Trump saying drop the charges, which that goes down the chain of command through the Attorney General, like Mike Davis just said. And then you have this New York judge refusing to drop charges because they're Democrat operatives. And we also covered that whole weird timing that happened late last year, right when Eric Adams started saying, we can't afford these illegals, and started calling it out and started going against the Biden administration, that suddenly they found all these charges of corruption between he and I believe it was
outrage now, even when JD Vance is talking over in Europe about how we need to protect free speech. Outrage over that. I want to play this clip getting a lot of reaction. Secretary of State Marco Rubio with the CBS News' Margaret Brennan, and she was talking about how the Nazis weaponized free speech in order to perpetuate the Holocaust.
This is my favorite one yet that the Democrats have come up with. We're for free speech. So now they're saying free speech is what helped weaponize the Nazis, which is, of course, ridiculous. You did not have free speech to criticize the Nazi regime in Germany. You weren't free to do that. So no, you did not have free speech. That should be obvious to anyone, but not to Margaret Brennan.
And something Rubio clearly took notice with and pushed back on. Let's play this.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
JD Vance, Mike, reacted saying, this is a crazy exchange. He tweets, does the media really think the Holocaust was caused by free speech? Well, there's a lot, obviously to unpack with that, but where do you think they're going with this, and why would they put this in the conversation?
These leftists, particularly in the mainstream, meaning left-wing media, are getting desperate. They are losing their monopoly over speech. And
yes, I agree with that. So I'm breaking in here. I believe that's what this is really about. I don't think any Democrat believes that Nazi Germany was caused by free speech. They just glommed onto that going, this is all we've got. They're drowning in the ocean, and this is the only life preserver we have, is to try and say, oh, they're for free speech. JD Vance is for free speech. Well, that's what caused Nazism. So I like what Mike Davis says here. This just displays They are desperate. They're done. We're continuing to monitor the Democrats as they are just absolutely destroyed. They've got nothing to hold on to. This is all they've got. But this is an act of desperation that ends up being a kind of a poker tell that tells you they've got nothing.
That is driving them bonkers, as we just saw with that anchor, where she makes these asinine comments that free speech somehow caused the Holocaust. I mean, that's just insane.
By the way, you can also say elections caused the Holocaust, because Germany, they freely, allegedly elected Hitler. So they had voting. So are you going to say that now? Free speech caused Nazism. Elections caused Nazism. So are you against elections now too? It doesn't make any sense. These Democrats they're just hateful and nuts. And I'm laughing at them.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too, because 60 Minutes actually put out a clip that showed a German state police raiding a home. A suspect's laptop and phone was seized because that person posted a racist cartoon online. So when J.D. Vance is talking about free speech and things that he says are, an issue in Europe, he's getting vindicated there big time. Real quick, what's going on here? The U.S. government is trying to rehire a number of staffers at the National Nuclear Security Administration after U.S. officials said up to 350 employees were abruptly laid off. Of course, this is part of DOGE, reduced federal spending. The agency's director, Teresa Robbins, issued a memo reversing the firing for all but 28 of those fired staff members. Mike, she put out a letter saying it serves as a formal notification that your termination on February 13th has been rescinded effective immediately. Can she do that?
That's a very good question. I hope this executive branch official got permission from the White House before she did that, because these executive branch officials report to the President of the United States, his White House staff, and his agency heads. And if they don't think that they report to the duly elected President of the United States, if they want to be insubordinate, they're going to be finding their next job.
DOGE, and there was a ruling blocking DOGE from accessing the Treasury Department documents that came in. But now this Federalist piece is actually looking at the judge who signed off on this temporary restraining order. And it says that he didn't even read. If you look at the timestamp of the final complaint, he just went ahead and did it. This injunction actually stops Trump, the Treasury Secretary, from accessing documents.
Yeah, these activist judges actually think the President of the United States and his Treasury Secretary cannot look at Treasury payments for waste, fraud, and abuse. That is insane. That's not going to be upheld by the Supreme Court of the United States. And these activist judges need to understand, when they lose their legitimacy, they will lose their power and they will lose their funding.
And that needs to go to the Supreme Court. I agree with that. I think that might be what it's going to take for all of this to be settled, because we've never had presidential orders questioned like this yet. That I believe it does need to go to the Supreme Court. I believe they will side with Trump. Where do you guys think this is going to happen? Do you think it's going to happen at the Supreme Court? Do you think the Supreme Court's going to get involved to end up pushing President Trump's executive orders through? Because the only other thing that's going to happen is the Democrats are going to have to give up, and I don't see them giving up because, like I've said, this is a religion for them. I'm Doug in exile.